you've hopefully watched the videos about the Stamp Act and the Stamp Act Congress. You should go back and watch those first if you haven't watched those. This is the reading, the Stamp Act Congress, when they got together, this was the document that they wrote to the King, King George, to explain to him why they were upset about this taxing. And I want you to really pay attention to the logic. They go from step A to step B to step C. There's 13 points here. And really follow this logic about how clearly they were thinking about why it makes sense that they should not be taxed by the British government. Again, keep in mind the logic of John Locke. Remember, goat to the giraffe? Keep in mind that logic too about where they're coming from. They're very much coming from this idea of freedom first. That you only allow government the powers that it needs to protect you. That's it. Government shouldn't take any more powers than that. So let's read this and talk about the points of logic and then how they did this. So here we go. They wrote the Congress. Let's see. They wrote. Yeah, here's their points. We're just going to start through the points here. Point number 1. Remember, these are what they wrote to King George. I don't think King George liked this very much, but here we go. Point number 1. That His Majesty's subject in these colonies owe the same allegiance to the Crown of Great Britain that is owing from his subjects born within the realm, and all due subordination to that august body, the Parliament of Great Britain. So their first point is that the colonists, the people who live in America, need to show the same support for the king that people in England did. Whether you're born in England or whether you're born in America, we need to show the same support for the king and for Parliament. So that's their first point. Everybody should be equal. Everybody should be equal in their support of the kingdom. Point number 2. That His Majesty's liege subjects in these colonies are entitled to all the inherent rights and liberties of his natural-born subjects within the Kingdom of Great Britain. So see how that logic point goes? Point number 1, everybody should support the kingdom the same. Everybody should be equal. And because everybody should support the kingdom the same and be equal, everybody deserves the equal rights in the kingdom. Step 2. Step 3, that it is inseparably essential to the freedom of a people and the undoubted right of Englishmen that no taxes be imposed on them but with their own consent, given personally or by their representatives. So, we should all support the kingdom the same, and if we all support the kingdom the same, we should all have the same rights. And one of the rights that everybody else has in the kingdom is that they don't have any taxes unless their representatives vote for it. See the logic that they're following here? Point number 4. That the people of these colonies, so the people of America, that the people of these colonies are not, and from their local circumstances, cannot be represented in the House of Commons in Great Britain. So there were no representatives in Great Britain for the colonies. The colonies didn't get to send any representatives back to Parliament, so they had no say. Following the logic, I would write these down, step A, step B, write down all these points and see kind of if you can follow how the logic goes from one to the other. Number 5. That the only representatives of the people of these colonies are persons chosen therein by themselves, and that no taxes ever have been or can be constitutionally imposed on them, but by their respective legislature. So there's the only representatives of the people are the ones that were the groups here. They can't have the colonies somewhere else, or the Parliament back there can't impose taxes on us here because they don't have the representatives. Only we can, if we elect our own representatives, can we have taxes on ourselves. Number 6, that all supplies to the crown being free gifts of the people, it is unreasonable and inconsistent with the principles and spirit of the British Constitution for the people of Great Britain to grant to His Majesty the property of the colonists. So this is the idea that who gets to say where the taxes come from? Parliament. The colonists have no say whatsoever. So why is it fair that Parliament gets to take things from the colonists and give it to the king? This goes back to John Locke. You got to remember that. All these things go back to John Locke. Nobody has right to come take your property away from you. In the state of nature, you can't just steal and give to somebody else. So why does Parliament get to steal and give it to the king? The colonists, remember, had no say in this. They had no representatives. Number 7, that trial by jury is the inherent and invaluable right of every British subject in these colonies. So everybody should be able to have a trial by jury, right? Everybody should be able to go to court. And number 8, that the late Act of Parliament entitled An Act for Granting and Implying Certain Stamp Duties and Other Duties in the British Colonies and Plantations in America, etc., by imposing taxes on the inhabitants of these colonies, and the said act and several other acts extending to the jurisdiction of the Court of Admiralty beyond its ancient limits, have manifest tendency to subvert the rights and liberties of the colonists. So they're saying that this is one of the first steps. You have shown now that you are not supporting our rights. You are telling us what to do without our say at all, and if we don't do it, you're going to take us to court and you're going to put us in jail. That doesn't make any sense. You are hurting our rights. If you're going to tax us, we have to have a say. So they said, this is the first time you've really overstepped the bounds, and you are infringing on our rights as people. America's a strong place for rights. We have a very good idea of what it means to have inherent rights, and it goes back to John Locke and Thomas Paine that you're going to read coming up here. Number 9, that the duties imposed by several late acts of Parliament from the peculiar circumstances of these colonies will be extremely burdensome and grievous, and from the scarcity of specie, the payment of them absolutely impractical. So they're saying not only should we have a say, but even if we didn't get a say, we don't like this. These are bad taxes. These are hurting us. Now remember, if a government's hurting you, according to John Locke, you get rid of it and get a new government. So they're saying these are hard taxes. We would not have voted for these. If we had a say, we would not have voted for these taxes. Number 10, that as the profits of the trade of these colonies ultimately center in Great Britain to pay for the manufactures which they are obliged to take from thence, they eventually contribute very largely to all supplies granted there to the crown. So they're like, not only that, but a lot of this money that we're giving you in taxes, it's not even helping us. It's going to help you. Why is our money going to help you way far away? This doesn't work. Number 11, that the restrictions imposed by several late acts of Parliament on the trade of these colonies will render them unable to purchase the manufactures of Great Britain. So that stuff that we're paying for, we don't get. Lame. That's what they're thinking here. Number 12, that the increased prosperity and happiness of these colonies depend on the full and free enjoyment of their rights and liberties, and an intercourse with Great Britain mutually affectionate and advantageous. So they're saying here that if these colonies are going to be successful and happy and prosperous, then we need to have full enjoyment of our rights. And if you start impeding or start taking away our rights, it's going to hurt and damage the colonies. It's going to hurt our prosperity. It's going to hurt our production. We're not going to want to work for things that we don't get. So it's going to hurt the prosperity of the colonies. And then the last one, that is the right of British subjects in these colonies to petition the king or either House of Parliament. Oh, sorry, there's one more. So they're saying we have a right to come to you with our grievances. We have a right to complain about this. Now, sometimes kings don't like people complaining, and when people complain, you know, that off their head type of a thing. You don't get to complain. But the Americans strongly believed that if they didn't like something the government was doing, even if it was the king, that they had a right to complain. So they're saying in number 13 there, we have a right to complain about this. And then last, that it is the indispensable duty of these colonies to the best of sovereigns, to the mother country, and to themselves to endeavor by a loyal and dutiful address to His Majesty and humble applications to both Houses of Parliament to procure the repeal of the act of granting and applying certain stamp duties of all clauses of any other acts of Parliament whereby the jurisdiction of the Admiralty is extended as aforesaid, and the other late acts for the restriction of American commerce. So they're saying here, it is our duty because we're in charge. It's our stewardship. We are in charge of America. We live here. We work it. We're the ones trying to make America work. So they said it's our responsibility when something is not working to let you know and to ask you to change it. So they're saying here that it's our duty. This Stamp Act, not working. It's going to hurt us. It's going to cripple us. It's going to make prosperity really hard. This is too much. This is a bad tax. And since we think it's a bad tax, it's our duty to let you know and to ask for you to change it. This is against the prosperity of our people. This is against the laws of nature. You shouldn't be hurting us for your own gain. And so they sent this to the king. King not too happy about it, I'm sure. But this did have influence, and they actually did end up changing some of these laws. So the Americans did have influence. But the Stamp Act was one of those first instances where they got together to represent themselves, and in this case they represented themselves and they didn't declare independence. That's still coming up. But they did send a message to the king saying, hey, this is not right. There's things not going on here. We deserve all the rights of everybody else. We don't have any representatives. If we don't have any representatives, you can't tax us because we have no say. And I hope you're really seeing a lot of these John Locke ideas infiltrating these events that happened right before the Declaration of Independence. Very strong. Americans, more than anybody else, understood this principle of freedom and understood the principle of natural rights, that a government is only good if it helps you succeed more. If it gets in your way of succeeding, or it hurts or damages you, then that's not good government. So here we get a good example of the Americans kind of standing up for themselves, standing up for their own rights, and standing up for this law of nature style of government.